Hi, everybody. I'm Faith Moore, and this is kind of Saving Cinderella the class, session 4 about Beauty and the Beast. So yesterday we had the class. It was amazing. I had some fantastic students who had some great things to say, but unfortunately it didn't stream live. So instead of that, I thought I would just do a quick live stream right now where I just kind of talk about some of the things that we talked about and some of my thoughts about Beauty and the Beast. You don't want to hear all of them right now because I could go on all day. But I think it's especially good to talk about it right now since the Beast is one of the people in our March Madness finals coming up this week, and I am officially Team Beast. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I talked about yesterday in the class that didn't stream. And for those of you watching who don't know what I'm talking about, this is my class based on my book, Saving Cinderella, What Feminists Get Wrong About Disney Princesses and How to Set It Right. And I'm doing, after this, there are 2 more sessions. There will be a session on Brave next Sunday and a session on Frozen the Sunday after that. And hopefully those ones will stream, but if they don't, I will come back to you like this. And if you'd like to be in any of these sessions, I have, I think, 1 spot left in the Brave session. So check in with me on Twitter or Facebook if you'd like to grab that spot. Okay, so Beauty and the Beast, here's a little bit of background. And then I want to just talk for a little bit about some of the misconceptions about the movie and debunk them because they're wrong. So Beauty and the Beast, the Disney movie, came out in 1991. It was the second film in the Disney Renaissance, which started in 1989 with The Little Mermaid. There actually was 1 movie in between The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, which was I think Rescuers Down Under, one of the Rescuers movies, which is not generally considered part of the Renaissance, but I don't want to offend anybody, so if you love that movie, great. But Beauty and the Beast is definitely considered the second Renaissance film. It's based on the French fairy tale La Belle et la Bête, which means Beauty and the Beast, which was originally written in 1740 by, I'm going to read this now because, whoa, French names, Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve. Why do they have so many names? I don't know. But anyway, she wrote it. And then later it was sort of rewritten and abridged by somebody else with a whole bunch of names, Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont in 1756. But the version that we know most and read most in English is actually in Andrew Lang's The Blue Fairy book. And if you haven't checked that out, Andrew Lang is he has a collection of fairy tales split into multiple books. They're all the fairy books, and they each have colors. So like the blue fairy book, the green fairy book, etc. And it's a great story, and you should check it out. And it actually, the Disney movie it varies a lot, but not in significant ways. And the only ways that it really significantly varies have to do with something that we're going to sort of talk about, which is that clearly at this point, Disney filmmakers were thinking about feminism. We talked a little bit about The Little Mermaid and how it was sort of received as a kind of like feminist reboot of the Disney princess back when it came out in 1989. And, this film, even more so, it's obvious that the filmmakers were sort of thinking about that. Linda Wolverton, who wrote the script, called Belle a feminist, and there were sort of changes during production, for example, where Belle was initially going to be sort of interested in baking and cooking, and they changed it to, she wants adventure. So there was definitely something going on with the filmmakers about that concept of what does it mean to be a princess, and that has been so sort of misused at this point now. But for me, Beauty and the Beast kind of straddles that line, the line between the sort of traditional princess movies, which maybe are not as accessible to us today, unless you've read my book, and the kind of more realistic, although obviously these things couldn't happen in real life, but the kind of more realistically motivated characters that we're getting in the Disney Renaissance. And I think that it's sort of like, for me, Beauty and the Beast is sort of the pivot, or like the fulcrum, where, on this side, you've got the sort of traditional movies that are maybe a little less accessible, like Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, great movies, but kind of dated. And then on the other side, you've got the sort of feminist garbage like Brave and Frozen. And Beauty and the Beast is just right there in the middle, being, in my opinion, perfect. So for me, Beauty and the Beast is a movie that takes the symbolic moment of of love at first sight, falling in love, and cracks it open and zooms in on just that moment so that we can see what's going on in there, right? Because the other movies use the fairy tale trope of love at first sight to depict something that happens in real life, which is a sort of meeting of the minds and the souls, where two people know for certain that they are meant to be together. But when it's depicted in that way, we are meant to kind of read and interpret the symbolism of that, but we don't necessarily know how it would happen in real life. And obviously, in real life, it's not going to happen by meeting a beast who turns into a prince, but the movie kind of delves into what does it mean to love? What does it mean to fall in love? And what do we do when we fall in love with someone? What does it do to us, and how does it change us? And the other thing that I think this movie is really about is about masculinity and being a man. And I think that it's such an important movie to think about and talk about in our current culture when we're constantly talking incorrectly about masculinity. And I said in the class that I sort of revealed, big reveal, that even though Belle is my favorite Disney princess, and she is, the Beast is my favorite Disney character of all time, because I think that what happens to the Beast and what the Beast does for himself is such an amazing thing for boys and men to see, and women too, and what it says about masculinity. So here are the sort of three misconceptions about this movie that I want to talk about right now. I think feminists even sort of agree that this movie kind of stands apart from some of the other movies that they hate so much. And they sort of acknowledge that Belle is somewhat more feminist than some of the other princesses. But there are three things that you hear a lot about this movie. Number one, it's about bestiality. That Belle falls in love with an animal, and she's really into beasts. Number two, that it promotes the notion that a woman can change a jerk into a great guy. And number three, that Belle has Stockholm syndrome, and therefore her love with the Beast is invalid. So I'm just going to take them one at a time, and we'll see where we get at the end. Okay? So the bestiality thing, obviously, it's kind of laughable when you just sort of say it, right? Because yuck. But there's something else going on here, I think, that's worth sort of talking about. So obviously, the idea that the movie is about bestiality comes from the feminist issue of taking things too literally, right? Obviously, the Beast's beastliness is symbolic of something. So in real life, if this story was to play out, the Beast wouldn't actually be a beast. He would embody whatever characteristics the beastliness of the Beast is meant to symbolize. So what does it symbolize? And in the class I asked, why a beast? When the enchantress comes to the castle and asks for shelter, and the Beast says no, why does she turn him into a beast? Not an object, not a cat. Why a beast? And the answer is the Beast is a physical representation of how the prince was behaving on the inside. He was behaving like a beast, but not just like a beast, like, oh, he's so mean, but a beast in the sense of he isn't channeling the base urges that he has, the things that just kind of come to him. He's not sort of using his humanity to channel those things for good. And specifically, this story is talking about his base male urges. So we all know that men and women are different, and that men generally are more prone to aggression. They are more, they're less risk averse, more quick to take action. Their sex drive is higher. And none of these things are negative or positive, right? We all just have things, truths about ourselves, right? Women have these things too. I mean, different things, right? But what is positive or negative is what you do with those things. So if you use your aggression to punch a bad guy in the face so that he doesn't harm someone else, that's good. If you use your aggression to punch someone in the face who's doing nothing at all because you felt like it, that's bad. So the beast and, well, the prince at the beginning of the movie is using those urges for ill. And so he's a beast, right? And he becomes a beast. The thing, though, about male urges is that they are attractive to straight women, right? You shouldn't marry the beast. You shouldn't date the beast. But those kinds of things, those neutral things, right? The kind of the power and the sexuality and all of those things, those are attractive. So the reason that people are getting confused about Belle's interest in beasts and does that mean bestiality is not just that they're taking it too literally and like there he is as a beast, maybe she's into beasts, but also because the things that the beast's beastliness represent are attractive things, right? There are things that if you take the symbol, if you read the symbol, then what you get is the kind of like that masculineness, that masculinity that is attractive. And so the beast, if you're reading the symbols, which we inherently do, right, is attractive. And that's why there's all kinds of monster romance stories. It's not just Beauty and the Beast, right? There's Dracula, there's the Twilight Saga, for better or for worse. There's, there's The Creature from the Black Lagoon. There's, The Phantom of the Opera, right? And, not all of the women get with the monsters in those films and stories, but this trope of monster romance exists not because we have a thing for monsters, but because we have a thing for men. And the symbolism of the beast's beastliness and what it represents is attractive to us. So it's not about bestiality, it's about masculinity. And not that men are beasts, right? But if you don't rein yourself in as a man, you might become one. And the beast does become one. So the beast's job is to keep his masculinity, not like the modern feminists want us to do and sort of strip it away. That's not how to become the best version of your male self. His job is to channel it so that he becomes a gentleman, right? And that's what they in the movie the objects, the servants say, you have to be a gentleman, act like a gentleman. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about this movie is that the beast learns to be a gentleman, which is still a man, right? And he uses his aggression to fight the wolves and to fight Gaston, and he uses his ability to protect and sacrifice for Belle, and he channels all of those things that are still inside of him into becoming a gentleman, and so that's what the beast is all about. So it's not about falling in love with beasts; it's about falling in love with men, and so that's point one. Okay, point two follows on from point one, which is that this is a movie about changing a man, that you can change a man. You can't. You can't fall in love with a bad guy and then nag him, berate him, or be super nice to him, or bake him a bunch of cookies and turn him into a great guy. That's not a thing. It can't happen. There, you heard it from me. That's not what this film is about. Luckily, because this is a fairy tale, and fairy tales are meant to teach us universal truths about the world, and that's not a universal truth. You can't change a man like that. And so this would be a terrible fairy tale if that's what it was teaching us. So hooray for us and hooray for fairy tales that is not what it is talking about. Here is what it is talking about. A man can change because of a woman, but you, the woman, we, the women, can't change the man. And that's what's happening to the beast. The beast sees in Belle someone that completely changes his view of how to live and how to love. And she does it without ever knowing that she's doing it. In fact, when the beast starts to change, Belle finds this new and a bit alarming, right? She has no idea why he's gone from this kind of gruff, foul-tempered beast to somebody who's kind of worth getting to know. And that's the way it should be in real life too, right? Maybe you meet a great guy and you start dating or you get married, and one day he turns to you and says, you're the reason I am the man I am today. And you're like, what? Why? What? It shouldn't be that you sort of berated him into this, because that doesn't work. Belle, here's another important piece, is Belle doesn't fall for the beast when he's acting like a beast. Right? She falls for him when he's already changed, and is starting to act like a man. And I sort of make the comparison between Belle and Jasmine from Aladdin. So Jasmine falls for Aladdin first, and then she realizes that there's some things about him that are sort of questionable. For example, his propensity for lying to her all the time, and also his interest in wealth over anything else. And she sort of yells at him about it. Did you think I was dumb? Like, did you think I wouldn't figure it out? And, she calls him like a stuffed shirt peacock or something like that. And, that's not helpful. That's not how it works in real life. So she fell for him first, and then she started to try to change him actively. But Belle doesn't fall for him until he is already changing himself. And she doesn't actually have any clue that she's the reason why he's changing. The first thing that the beast notices is that she sacrifices herself for her father. And the beast says, you would do that? He doesn't know that love can demand sacrifice, or love can cause you to make a sacrifice. And it's not Belle saying like, yeah, see, sometimes you have to make sacrifices if you love people. No, she's just doing it. She's just always being completely herself. And that is the thing that makes the beast want to change. And he does change. And in changing, he becomes worthy of Belle. So she is always herself, always worthy of him. He sees that and he changes and he becomes someone worthy of her. And then she gives him her love. And that, I think, is a real thing that can happen in real life. And she does change him, but she doesn't change him. She doesn't seek to change him. He changes himself for her. And I think that is really important. And again, it's in this sort of vein of masculinity. What do you do with your masculinity? How do you channel these urges, and how do you channel these just kind of innate things that are there for men? And that's what's going on for the beast. And Belle gets rewarded for being always herself. She doesn't give in to his anger and his frustration. She doesn't, even though she's afraid, she doesn't compromise herself. And that she gets a great guy out of it. So that's that piece, right? So the bestiality thing, the beastliness represents his masculine urges. The change happens not because of something Belle does, but because of who she is. And then the third thing is that she's got Stockholm Syndrome. So Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological condition that really happens to people in horrible situations where they have been held hostage and they develop feelings for their captor in order to survive. And so this phrase, Stockholm Syndrome, is like thrown around all the time because Belle is essentially at the beginning a prisoner in the beast's castle. Let me read you the actual definition of Stockholm Syndrome, like from a dictionary. An emotional attachment to a captor formed by a hostage as a result of continuous stress, dependence, and a need to cooperate for survival. Okay, I don't think Belle meets any of that. Okay, she is not dependent on the beast. We know that. He kind of leaves saying she can't come down to dinner, but she does, and she eats, and she's fine. She's wandering all over the castle. She's in a room. Presumably there's like a bathroom where she can go to the bathroom. She's not dependent on him for her needs. It's stressful, but she's not under continuous stress. I mean, the most stressful thing that happens is she goes into the West Wing and the beast roars at her and she runs away. So she's gone. And she doesn't have a need to cooperate for survival. There is no indication at all in the film that the beast is going to kill her, ever. You know, he's scary, he's rude, he's loud, but he never ever threatens her life, and that obviously isn't on his mind, and so he's not sharing that with her. So that's the first thing. I think we can sort of throw Stockholm syndrome out the window, but there is a sort of element here that we should explore, which is that, you know, she's a prisoner, and can you fall in love, you know, and is your love real with someone who is essentially holding you captive? So let me just explore that for 1 minute, okay? The first thing is that, yes, Belle is a prisoner at the beginning, but she is a prisoner of her own free will. She's made a sacrifice. It's not great, because she would prefer to be free, but she does have a choice, and she chooses to take her father's place. So that's the first part. So she is there of her own free will, but still not great. And then she runs away. So then she's free. She leaves. When the beast comes after her and saves her life, she makes another choice to come back. She could have taken the beast back and sort of left him there and then gone, right? He wasn't really in any position to keep her there, but she chooses to stay. And so she stays. But all of that could still be problematic, right? Because there is this kind of weird situation where she's agreed to do it, but it's not really the way that you should behave with people that you're falling in love with, right? To keep them prisoner. But here's the thing, right? That kind of negates all of that in my mind. The terms of the beast's spell indicate that the spell will be broken immediately when he has fallen in love with someone and earned that person's love in return. So when the beast has fallen for Belle, we know that it's happened by the time of the ballroom situation, right? But Belle isn't necessarily in love with him at that point because he's still a beast. So she's obviously falling for him. She's obviously developing feelings for him, but she hasn't fallen in love with him at that point, because otherwise he would be a beast again. He then releases her because he loves her. He sees that she needs to go to her father. He sees that he can't keep her prisoner when he loves her. He knows now, because his transformation is complete, right? He's now a man inside, a gentleman inside of a beast's body. So he is now aware that he can't keep her here if he loves her, and he does love her. So he lets her go. And then she is completely free, right? There's nothing else there. He says, I release you. And she thanks him, and off she goes to rescue Maurice and deal with Gaston, right? When she comes back, because Gaston is after him, and then Gaston essentially kills him, he's dying. And she sees that he's dying, and she realizes that he could be gone forever. Then that is when she acknowledges, or her love for him arises in her, and she says, I love you. And that's when the transformation takes place. So her love is given completely freely to the beast, right? She is completely free, and she doesn't, even though she might feel love towards him, she doesn't love him in return. She hasn't, that love that is earned in return is earned through the act of setting her free. And he sets her free, and then she gives her love to him, and he is transformed. And so I think this whole concept of Stockholm syndrome, like, yes, it's a plot point in the story that she needs to stay in the castle so that she can fall in love with the beast. But the love that is transformative is given completely freely. And I think that there isn't really an argument to say that it isn't, because she's definitely free at that point. And that, I think, is the point. I think that she doesn't really truly love him until she is free. And I think that is beautiful. So that's my talk. That's my little talk about Beauty and the Beast for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If I've got more Beauty and the Beast stuff going on this week. On Tuesday evening, probably around 8, I'm going to live tweet the movie of Beauty and the Beast. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts, probably a little more snarky than this, I will check in with me on Twitter. I will be tweeting that, and we will also be doing our final vote for Disney March Madness. It's The Beast versus Flynn Rider, and we'll be doing that on Wednesday. And then following that, on Friday, we will announce the grand prize winner, who will win a copy of Saving Cinderella in paperback, a copy of C.S. Johnson's book, The Princess and the Peacock, and a $5 gift card to the Disney Store. So, and you should also check in with C.S. Johnson on Twitter, because she is now officially Team Smolder, and she will be live tweeting Tangled. I think it is tonight. So check in with her about that. So thanks so much. And I appreciate you guys all hanging in there with me through technical difficulties. Sorry about that. And we're going to get them all ironed out and everything's going to be great. So great to talk to you today. And I will see you soon. Bye.